head panel. There should be a clause in here, a penalty for when this is broken. When any other law in the country is in conflict with this take precedent. So there must be a penalty. I do hope that and Dr. Alexis, please guide me. I don't know whether, it's not everything you can put in the Constitution, but there should be certain penalties when the law of the land, the highest law of the land is broken. So I do hope that something like that should be reflected some way in the Constitution. One other thing that I want to address is that of the qualification of MPs. In 30, it is there. I don't need to reiterate it again. It is there. But please, let us ensure that the qualification of the persons who is running for office is clearly defined. Also, there is this feeling that just any and anybody could offer themselves for office. There's nothing wrong with that, basically. But there should be some other qualification. And I want to inject one where prime ministers of the country should not be involving in the workings of the Elections and Boundaries Commission. And I do hope that we could call it something like that, where you have persons who is in charge of running the elections and not having been influenced by the politicians. I would very much like to see that reflected in the Constitution. Additionally, I would hope that when there is an election, when we do change that, because I am one of them that will be advocating for change. I don't want to friend that nothing is wrong with it. And things change, and we see things differently. When a government is elected into office for 5 years, the election is called March 13, 2014. The sitting government is removed from office, voted out. There should be a provision in the Constitution for a transition of that government. I am pissed, and so do a lot of people, when the election is today and tomorrow there is a mad rush to appoint the prime minister-elect. And there is no time given for the ministers, because they're still ministers. They may not be MPs. They are still ministers of government, to brief those who are coming in, or in discussions and whatever at the political level. And I also want to advocate that maybe at some point in time, the PSCs, because no prime minister or government who has been voted out can do anything, because the permanent secretaries are the one responsible for running the ministry in terms of finances. So, but Attilo has just demitted office as the prime minister. But in the time he was there, before the present prime minister take over, he can't do anything without the permanent secretary authorizing it. And I do hope that they could put something there that could be able to safeguard us. To me, it's a mad rush for power. And I would very much like for some part in the Constitution to reflect that.
About the Prime Minister in relation to the electoral process. I totally agree with you. But there's also a recommendation that there be an election, so that's the point is relevant. And I support the Electoral Commission, because you could get a Prime Minister who could manipulate a supervisor of election. You know, there are some who wouldn't get involved in it, but there are those who would do it. So your point is on target. I think that is at the heart of the democratic process. An electoral commission where members are recommended by government, opposition, and maybe other interest groups in the society. And also your second point, I think any civilized society need some form of transition. I mean, that is part of it. I mean, it's that's all we have inherited. But I think any civilized society needs some form of transition. And, you know, it's something that we need to look at. So, Danley, you bang on target with very, really relevant and pertinent points.
The point about transitional government, it is the first time it is being brought to our attention. And for that matter, to be honest, it is the first time I am thinking about it, as you mentioned it. The issue would be, who would be the transitional government? Is it the voted out government? I guess you can answer by saying, well, look at what they do in America at the federal level. You vote in the president today, but he doesn't take office until a good few months down the road, so we can look at it. So it is something to think about. That has not been brought to our attention before, and I frankly have never thought about it, but I'll think about it going forward. So thank you very much indeed for that.